Welcome to Sam's Antique Motors. You got Sam Wilson here. Today I'm working on putting this NAPCO transfer case back together. I took all the parts of pieces apart. Pretty easy to do. I did have a NAPCO manual, but I wound up just doing it intuitively and taking each of these pieces off, take the covers off, pull the bearings out, tap those out, and then pull the forks out. So everything pretty much came apart, no problem. I've painted all of the pieces, and now I'm working on putting the assembly back together. Here's all the component pieces cleaned up. Things that I could bead blast, I did. This case was originally red. When I pulled the NAPCO cover off of the transfer case, underneath, and this is the NAPCO badge here, underneath this badge, it was definitely red paint. So I put it back red, and a couple of the pieces I painted black because I think they would have been black, the yokes to go with the drive shaft, etc. I ordered some new seals from Torque King, got some new gaskets from Torque King, and some bearings from Torque King. I ordered the phenolic mounting pads, but these are really hard plastic, and they're the wrong size. So these pieces here don't go in these holes, so they really won't work. So I went in and I had some thick, kind of 1/4 inch thick rubber, which matches the 1/4 inch thick round gaskets that were in there before. So I just cut these to fit. So I fabricated one on the bottom. They have a little insert in them that goes in this hole right here. So I made an insert with a big punch and a little punch, and then the original ones were round, but I think they look better square. So I made a round one, round side to fit in the bracket, and a square one. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these back in here, and then flip this case essentially upside down to assemble it. Okay, I got these all set up, and I got a bunch of my buddies that kind of rag me when I don't do things exactly paying attention to the details. So notice here when I had to fabricate these studs. I got 9/16 studs, fine thread one end, coarse thread on the other end. I had to cut them off to the proper length and drill the cotter pin holes. But I made sure that when I put these in that I set these so that they're both parallel, and then I made sure when I bent these cotter pins that I put them in all the same way and bent them all the same way. So that's the top mount, inside mount, and now we're ready to flip it over and see if we can't get it back together. And one more little diversion. I went in and while I had it upside down, got my little drive rivets out and installed the NAPCO badge back on here. I had to basically just cut those off to get the tag off, and then I drilled them out once I got it off. But now that I got that off, put the drive rivets back in, good to go. All right, referring to the NAPCO assembly manual and some fancy phone pictures, the first thing I did was put in the inner interlock poppet, and then the next thing I'm going to do is put the front wheel drive, which is the one closest to these fill plugs, fork. And again, going to my pictures, the front wheel drive has this little piece here that inner poppet interlock rod hits, and then these springs and balls are going to find their way into these notches in the different gears. So the one farthest away from the plug has just a single little indent for the interlock, and then these grooves here. The one closest to the fill plug has a long interlock groove, and these a single, a ramp, and a single. So I'm going to set those in there. They can kind of only go one way, and then once you get them in there, these this little nut goes in here, which screws down and self-centers in that, and this has a little hole in it So there's a locking wire that gets put in there and threaded in. So I've got the inside in. I've got the, I'm fixing to have the cap in, which goes right here for that interlock rod. There's no spring and ball on this one. It just goes in there and it's going to hold itself in. Well, maybe I'm going to get it screwed in there. All right, so I got that one screwed in there, and I'm going to put a little assembly lube on this. Inserted new seals for both of these shift rods. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in place and get ready for the next step. Man, building these transfer cases is just really tiring. Wears a guy out. But at this point, Shackleton has gotten the forward input shaft in. Where's my light? And so what I did is I installed the input that's forward in the case, put this in, put the wire in there, drop this gear, making sure this groove is going to this groove here is going to the front of the transfer case. Then I put the rear interlock bar in, and then I dropped this gear in, again making sure the groove is in the front, and put the shifter shaft in down there. And then you can see where I wire tied both of these with little stainless 40 thousandths wires. And then I came over and I put in the poppet springs and the ball spring and the cap on both ends of these interlock rods. So the next part is to come over here to this, I think this is the input shaft, and insert the helical gears and the shafts for that. Okay, this has been a bit of a puzzle, but I finally figured it out, I think. So the helical gear goes in here. The back of the case is over here. So I had the wrong gear. This gear has teeth in it. They say they're the same in the manual, but they're not. One has got a smaller diameter with grooves that go through that spline shaft. The output shaft is up here. So the next thing is I had to come in here and grease these little bitty balls, little rods, to put them down inside this shaft. And so the next miracle is going to be getting that through there without knocking all those little balls off. So next step. Whew. Bingo. That is a little bit dicey to going in there. But now I just need to push these bearings up in there and put the covers on. But I got to press the seals into the bearing covers first. Okay, I had to put this housing on to hold that bearing up in the housing, and then I had to just tap this side in. But I've now got this in here where this is working like it's supposed to be, all with new good bearings. I still got to put the bearing in the seal in here, and then we'll be ready to go to the next step. All right, I got all these shafts in. Once I got this one put in, The rest of these just sort of fell in place. So after I put this shaft in, I funneled that one through. And this one has the big gear that's got the fork in it. Then it's got the helical gear facing that. Shaft poked right through, bearings pushed on. Then I put in this big bearing, only go one way, big bearing, big gear, helical gear, and put the nut on it. In all cases, just put these caps on here just enough to be able to hold the bearing in while I push the other side in. So now I'm going to take this. About the only thing I got left is putting the gaskets and the caps back on it. So I held all the gaskets off until the end so that I could do that kind of the messy part all at one time. So it took about 4 hours to figure out how to put this thing together, and I could not have done it without this diagram, which came out of the NAPCO owner's manual, the instructions, which are a little bit vague but were helpful, and the key to the diagram. So between all three of those pieces of information and a ton of photographs I had in my phone, pretty much got it back together. So I'll put the caps on it and close it up. Now I'm going to figure out how to drive the seal on there. So I got to go get the seal, and then I got to find a way to get seal on that. Okay, I had to do a little hunting, find something that's big enough to go around that. Fortunately, one of the guys on the NAPCO forum suggested that this little tool would be really helpful for putting, for taking the yolks off. Wasn't actually helpful for that because the hole diameter is not big enough for the socket to go through. Didn't work, but it's perfect for this. Yep. I think we can make that work. Okay. Speedometer gear. Might as well go fit that for a socket first. That's going to be upside down leaking oil, so that's got to have a gasket on it. So I'm going to have to go see if I have a big old a copper gasket, and if not, I may have to get one or make one. Okay, I didn't really have a gasket, so I just made one. This is the same size as a spark plug, by the way. So I'll probably wind up just getting a copper gasket to go on it, but I basically took these handy dandy punches that I got from my good friend Corky. Passed away of COVID last year, 91 years old. And I just cut a big circle and a little circle to make a gasket. Oh. Kind of feeling for any kind of resistance and just making sure that if it does have to spin in there, it gets into the gear. Well, that actually went in there pretty nicely. So I may just leave that. That worked out pretty good. Thought I was through with this stuff. Took exactly one tube. Okay. There you have it. One transfer case rebuilt. No fingerprints off of it. This took about 4 hours to put together. Of course, I could put the next one together in about 2 hours. So, doubt I'll ever build another one of these, but it's actually not that bad. took me a couple hours to sandblast all the parts. I parkerized all the bolts and painted all the components, and looks good. Okay, next project, rear axle. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Download the Resto-Rat app today to begin managing, tracking, and documenting your restoration project.